So there's one more topic I definitely want to cover. And you mentioned that there's this balance between likability and accountability. And it's very true because as you know, a few years ago when I started getting this feedback, I was really trying to navigate how do I become a better leader, knowing that there are these limitations placed on me because of my gender, especially at this particular firm that I was working at. And so I sought out a women in leadership course through Cornell University, provided by Dr. Deborah Strader, and she was fantastic. It was an amazing course. For the first time in my life, I was introduced to the concept of the double bind, which is what you're talking about. So she says, she describes it as this: the double bind means that women operate in a set of narrow boundaries. If they are too assertive, they are seen as aggressive and unlikable. But if they have caretaking qualities, that's affiliated with weakness. So women just can't exercise the masculine behaviors of leadership as openly as men can. I sometimes call it the niceness penalty. And the fact is that both men and women expect women to be nice. So it's like the bias kind of exists across the board. It's not a bias that's only men think women need to be nice. Women also think women need to be nice. Um, so I'm just curious, how do we play the game? And you've covered this well already, but if we were going to leave the ladies that are listening to this conversation with a few tips, what's the best way to play the game?
Yeah. Um, if we figured it out,
Right.
we
What we know right now, the best possibilities that we have today.
yes. You know, it's a really hard balance that is so built into our society and our
Yeah.
society norms. And I do remember in one of the roles that was heavily male led, and I was one of the few females. I do remember being the only one with young children, right? Like
Yeah.
being a mother of a toddler at the time, and being in a multi-million-dollar business, and one of them being male, and looking around the room, and in order for them to do the job, which was highly traveling and highly all of that, they had
Yeah.
stay-home moms,
Mm,
which is like great,
yes.
right? Like, believe me, like there's going to be many times that I'm like, how could I have made that work? Even though it's as much work, believe me, it's as much work. I'm thankful every day that I get to go to work. But it's still a perception that they have, when you walk into the room and they look at you, because every day they're like, well, they have this perspective of the caregiver, right? Because
Right.
they're caregiving your children and taking care of them and all that. We can do both. I can be
Yeah.
a great, amazing caregiver. And I had a leader that sometimes when I come across as very aggressive, she'll tell me, how will you say that to Blake? And completely changing my perspective when I was being very forceful and like perceived as very aggressive. How will you say it? And I'm like, oh, well, I wouldn't say it like this at all because she's my love, right? And I'm like, and
Right.
suddenly, like, you completely change your perspective on how you say it. So for me, I can't. That's how I manage mine. Like every time I'm being too forceful, because I believe that this is the right thing to do. I have to go back to how will I say it to my daughter,
That's
and
awesome.
that will completely kind of bring me into a middle balance. The other thing that I have constantly coached on when it comes to women being aggressive, I always say, there's times that there's the right thing to do, and the right thing is always the right thing, but the right thing should never be a priority over being kind. So
Mm,
even if you're right, you have to choose between being right and being kind. And you're in a conversation and you're like, I am right and you're wrong. And I have to choose between being kind and being right. Just choose the kindness. And you will get to the point in which you are right through, but never let go of that kindness. Because when the kindness goes away, then you're just trying to be right. Then that person's going to shut down and you're going to lose them.
yeah.
So I think that that's that. But in terms of how do we
That's
change that,
great.
yeah, that niceness perspective, it's going to be something that we constantly have to help each other get there. I think, to your point, being surrounded by strong women that have figured it out does something to us other women that, okay, this is
Hmm.
possible, it can happen. Because I do remember me being in the world around, many roles, and all this amazing male leaders were doing such a great job. And then, but I started questioning myself because they were doing these amazing things. They were selling them like $1 million. And then I just realized they were just putting some spreadsheets together. Like, I can do this with my eyes closed. But they were selling it so good that I was like, I'm an idiot. They're gods. I mean, they're just like doing such a great job. But then when I started seeing other female leaders doing it, representation is very important.
Yeah.
So in order to change that niceness perspective, the biggest way to do it is through representation.
Mhm.
And as a woman in IT, even if you don't have direct reports, as a woman in marketing, as a woman in many fields that are men led, do not take away the fact that you are representing to someone else. To
Yeah.
you, your role might seem small, but the more and more we keep habitating that room and being there, you're representing to someone else. And that representation to other male coworkers and that representation to other females will make a huge difference.
That's so incredible. Um, awesome. So that is also how we change the game then, because that
Yeah,
was going
that
to be my
is.
last question. So
Yeah, that's how we
that's
change the
great.
game is by us being in the room, by us representing that room, by being there for each other. But you will not be able to change. You can impact, but you can't change someone else's perspective completely. But
Yeah.
the most important thing about people's perceptions is that it involves emotion, and emotion is easily changed, right? So you cannot change completely life experiences, what happened to them when they were a child, what's happening to
Mhm.
them when they're home. You cannot change that, but your behaviors, and every time you get an interaction opportunity with that person, it slowly shapes the way that person thinks. Even though you cannot change their core values, it will eventually change the game.
That's wonderful.